Hello and welcome to the Winchester Archives Supernatural Podcast. I'm Ed,
I'm Brooke.
and today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 20, Dead Man's Blood. Before we do, as always, quick spoiler warning. We'll be connecting dots from across the entire series, so if you're watching Supernatural the first time or have not finished the series yet, this is your warning. We will be discussing things from throughout everything. Also, an explicit content warning as always. We are adults talking about an adult show that is a dark and sensitive topic. Expect adult language, mature discussions, and dark humor. And before we get going, as well, we are no longer on Instagram or TikTok because look it up. The US is going to shit. And those platforms went along with it. So you can now find us on Upscrolled at Winchester Archives Pod, as well as on YouTube and Patreon at Winchester Archive Podcast. Share, like, comment, subscribe, all the fun things to help us keep growing this community of archivists. We would appreciate it.
All right. Going into our episode specs. This episode aired on 4/20,
Whoop whoop.
2006. It was written by Catherine Humphreys and John Scheiben and directed by Tony War- Warby. The supporting cast is Jeffrey Dean Morgan as John Winchester, Warren Christie as Luther, and Anne Openshaw as Kate. Our synopsis this week is a fellow hunter, Daniel Elkins, is killed, and the brothers head out to see what happened. While investigating, John randomly appears and just continues to be the worst father on the whole planet. Turns out Elkins was killed by vampires, and they stole this gun that's apparently very important. While searching for the vampires, tension rises between Sam and John. And finally, we find out that this gun is said to kill any supernatural being. John expects his children to just leave and not stand by his side during the big fight, but they
Mm.
do anyway, they stay. So John is able to live because he was gonna die, and the whole day is saved by the magical gun, the Colt. Finally, they all agree it is best to stay together.
But before we get into the small details here in a second, I will say this is an episode that I'm probably gonna be talking more than normal because yay, vampire lore. But also, fuck John, bro. It's so annoying, especially now. We just did this it was 2 episodes ago that they're like, we can't be together. And now it's like, no, yeah, you're right, we should be together. It's like, why did we do that why was that even part of the story then? We just
Yes.
undid it 2 episodes down the road. What are we doing? Anyway, I have a lot to rant about John too, because he's just a jackass. The entire time I was sitting there being like, I hate you so much. You are just the worst person.
Mhm.
All right. With all that said,
Yeah.
Brooke, let's get into the small details.
Okay.
Unless you have something you want to comment on my, rants already.
No, no, we'll get to it when we get there.
Mhm.
So we start off in Manning, Colorado, and it just says present day. So I was like, I need to look up what this is. From what I'm seeing through all my research on it, is this is actually in July. So this whole time we've been off on our timeline.
Mm.
In Something Wicked, when we were like, was school even in session? And we were like, maybe it was May. No, that was in June.
It
So
must have been the last week of school or something then.
yeah. So, I'll be updating our timeline anyway when we do our end of season wrap up, which is in
Yeah.
3 episodes from now. So I'm not gonna get too much into it.
Mhm.
So we see Mr. Elkins at a bar, just frantically writing and researching something. The bartender tells somebody there that he's a nice old man, but he's a nut. And then I'm like, I'm sure this dude is a hunter. His notes are
Yeah.
looking a lot like John's.
Yeah. And if anyone's like, oh, he's a sweet old guy, but he's kind of insane, it's like, yeah, he's probably a hunter.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be track for pretty much all of them.
Yeah. Or any conspiracy theorists.
Mhm.
These people walk in the door and he's kind of sussing them out.
Mhm.
And then he just leaves. He gets home super fast. And as soon as he gets there and he sets his stuff down, he turns around and one of the ladies from that group in the bar was just behind him. He takes out a knife and stabs her in the chest. she pulls it out and says he can do better than that, and her eyes have, like, a silver flicker that go over them, like in the Skins episode.
Yeah. And he doesn't actually,
Mhm.
like, stab her in this, he throws the knife at her, and it, like, goes, like, even cooler. Like,
Mhm.
he just, like, turns and chucks it at her, and it gets stabbed in her chest.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's really cool that this is one thing that Supernatural does very well, is it makes their monsters feel a lot more grounded in reality, by making them more biologically accurate. Like, with the vampire like, in vampire lore, this isn't a thing. Like, it's not really,
Mhm.
like, a thing that's ever mentioned, really. The, like, silver flick to their eyes, I think it's a really cool added little thing they do for some of these things because it makes them feel more biologically real because any nocturnal animal, they have like, and especially predators, like wolves or coyotes, have, like, a reflective layer in their eyes that helps them to enhance their night vision by reflecting some of that light out of their eyes,
Mm,
which
mhm.
makes them kinda, like, glow like that, give that little flicker of something when light hits them. And I think that's a really cool thing because biologically, if a vampire existed, like, as a biological creature, that's probably something they would develop because they are nocturnal and because they
Mhm.
are predators and, like, more predator like, they're apex predators, right? They are, like, top of the
Yeah.
food chain, so they would have those kind of tools to continue to be good hunters at night. So I was like, "That's a cool little." I just like that they do that because it makes them feel more real and less supernatural, right? They make them feel more real, kind of the
Mhm.
side of the supernatural, which I really give this show a lot of credit for. Even their demons feel a lot more and angels feel a lot more real.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and it also signals to the audience that, like, "Hey, this isn't a human." Besides them being, like, stabbed in the chest and it doing nothing, I mean, if that didn't happen,
Yeah.
you can see the flicker in their eyes and be like, "Oh, this is not a human."
Yeah, it's just not some random person. It's like, "Oh, this is, like, something else."
So, after she pulls a knife out of her chest with seemingly no injury, he just runs into another room, shuts the door, and pushes an entire full bookcase in front. So not John, Daniel is very strong.
Mhm. He's a
And
tough,
then
strong dude.
he starts frantically trying to unlock a safe. And whoever this woman is hitting the door so hard it's making the full bookcase rattle. And then 2 men jump through the glass on the ceiling. You have, like, a glass sunroof, and they just
Mhm.
jump through it, and then the woman pushes the whole bookcases down completely with just the
Like, breaks
door.
through the door, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Clearly showing a lot of strength, which, again, I'm very excited about this episode because we get to talk about vampires, and that's a fun there's a lot of lore behind vampires. But
Mm,
it's a very common trope in all, like, modern vampire depictions, for, like, super strength. Basically,
mhm.
that's like a common, "Oh, you're a vampire, you have, like, massive amounts of strength compared to normal people." From what I could find, there really isn't anything like that in, like, ancient folk, like, actual folklore about vampires having super strength, other than the idea of them, like, essentially hunting humans, so, like, they gotta be strong enough to, like, pin them down. So they're probably, like, they're probably stronger than humans, but it's never, like, explicitly said. Um,
Mhm.
but back in 1897, Bram Stoker, our favorite, vampire enthusiast who wrote, Count Dracula, uh, is basically the model that every modern depiction has kind of evolved from.
Mm.
Because in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he said Count Dracula was a warrior, so he was already stronger than the average person, but he was also described as having the strength of 10 men. So
Oh.
he would have like superhuman strength.
Mhm.
So that got, like, kinda pulled into the modern lore of what a vampire is from Dracula, but from, like, all the way back when it was, like, in myth, it wasn't really a
Mhm.
thing, but it's cool to see that this Count Dracula basically became the prototype vampire that is what all these new interpretations have come from. Another, like, trope of that, because like, some vampire lores that we know about, is that they have to be invited into a home before they can reach your entrance, right? Before they
Yeah.
can go in and do what they wanna do. Obviously, in this case, unless they had met before and he'd invited them in, which I highly doubt, they don't have that restriction in this world, which is it's proven more and more, like, throughout the series as well, that that's not a thing that they follow in this.
Mhm.
As we'll get into here in a moment. Basically, most vampire lore, they kinda just chuck out the window and hope for the best. Um, but, this was obviously not a trope in ancient times either, because in ancient times, these are monsters that, like, tormented villages by killing people in their sleep. So, like, clearly, they could go into houses without any warning. But,
Mhm.
again, because of, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Dracula could only enter a building if he was invited in. But this is an interesting thing. they when they're invited in, they have that invitation forever, in
Mhm.
perpetuity. So if you're invited in once, you're good to go as a vampire, in terms of Count Dracula, which I found interesting because later on in the episode, they talk about, like, the vampire having your scent for life, and it was, like, a kind of a similar vein
Mhm.
of things where it's like, "Oh, this, like, this interaction makes them able to come find you whenever they want," you know? So it's
Yeah.
like you can see a parallel kind of forming there. Um, but this is like a kind of a tangent, but I kind of want to talk about it a little bit more. The idea of like needing to be invited into a space kind of goes back to, I believe, of like I think of like ancient beliefs that doorways and thresholds were sacred, so that evil could be basically rejected away from your house by putting out like an evil eye on your door, like the ancient Greeks did, by either hanging them or painting
Mhm.
them on their door. And I think it relates to like I think a concept of ancient Greek have a concept of Xenia, which is their concept of hospitality, where basically you honor your guests and you honor your host and you give them a lot of respect and like gratitude and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
To where like if someone walks in your door and it's a stranger and they're asking for like food, you invite them in for dinner and you treat each other with respect and you
Mhm.
like take care of each other. And I think the vampire myth, like kind of like that kind of like, oh, they have to be invited in, and then it's like a trap, almost like an inversion of that, where it's like, oh, be wary of who you invite in, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think it might be related to some sense because there was a lot more of that hospitality back in those times. That like, oh, so now it's like, oh, be careful what you invite in because you might invite a monster, right?
Mhm.
But it's really
True.
interesting because, like, that's the thing that Count Dracula has, but, like, obviously Supernatural doesn't want that in their lore, which makes sense because it makes it a lot less scary of a being if it has to, like, follow rules, like, I have to be asked to come in the door.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you think the vampires don't like garlic thing comes from them hanging that stuff on their doors? Like, if they just put, like, a string of like, a million garlic cloves on their door, and they're like, "Vampires won't come here," but in reality, it's like, "Who wants to smell that?"
I think a lot of
Um,
it too from, like, those things is because they have such a pungent scent and because,
mhm,
like, some, like, things don't really like animals and or, like, insects and stuff, like, aren't necessarily attracted to, like, foul smelling things very much. It can be like that keeps them away because it's like, it's a scent no one likes, it repels things. But we'll
yeah.
get into more of that kind of stuff when John throws the entire vampire lore out with the bathwater later.
Okay. So back to the safe. The camera zooms in on a gun that's in the safe. The lady vampire picks up the gun and even says like, "Hey, this is a nice gun, but it
Mhm.
won't do you any good." And then she tells the guys that broke through the ceiling to go ahead and eat him. So they do.
Yeah, she goes, "We're eating in tonight, boys," and then they just start chowing down on him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Ouch." Rough.
Because at this point, when you're watching as an audience member for the first time, you don't know this is vampires yet.
Yeah, you don't know vamps yet, you just know monster that just, like, ate this guy.
And they're super strong and they have
Super strong and immune to a lot of damage,
and the
right? Like,
silver
like, some things.
yes, and the silver eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
So now we see the brothers in a small diner. They're currently in Nebraska and they're having a hard time finding leads. Dean can't find anything in the paper, and Sam says he has scanned Wyoming, Colorado, South Dakota, and where they are right now. Then Dean says they can head back east to New York, specifically upstate, so Sam can see Sarah again. And
I
Sam
love
is
that.
like, "Yeah, maybe someday."
Yeah, Sam wasn't too into it, I guess.
No, he just wants his revenge
Uh-huh.
now. He's like, "We left. Let's move on." Sam finds an article about Daniel and saying it was mauled in his own home, but in a potential bear attack. And we know by this series already that the police love using that as their excuse for like the supernatural stuff.
To be fair, though, to be fair to the cops in this instance, if you go into a home that has the front door and the 2 skylights broken in, and then you go into this room, the door has been caved in, and the guy is eaten, like, ripped apart, blood everywhere, I'm assuming. Like, what do you do? What do you assume happened,
Not
you
a
know?
bear. It wouldn't break in through the ceiling.
Yeah, the whole breaking in the ceiling and, like, the doors is, like, the thing where it's like, a bear wouldn't do that. If a bear had to try that hard to get to someone, they would give up. They don't
Yes,
care enough.
it would go to, like, your trash and leave.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like, it'd go, like, root around your kitchen and be like, "Ooh, there's food in here."
Yeah, right.
It wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'm pissed at that guy for something."
So I would say I would assume there was, like, a psychopathic murderer on the loose.
Yeah, that'd be the best assumption probably, but, like, it's a really weird situation to come into because a normal person probably couldn't break a door down like that or,
No.
like and, like, what would break the skylights? You wouldn't assume someone, like, jump through them. So, like, I would be baffled if I was a cop and seeing this scene. I'd be like, "Ah, I couldn't tell you. He exploded, and it blew the door and the
Be like,
ceiling apart."
"It was a bear, shut the file, case closed.
That's
Moving
probably what
on."
actually is happening because they don't care enough or the vampires have it someone that's in the force.
Yeah. Or they're just, like, so confused. It's maybe not even lack of caring, it's just, like, lack of resources or, like, it's
That's what I
I
mean, like,
don't
what do you even
know.
do? Yeah, like, how do you even, like, definitively say something is like,
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah, that
To
threw
be fair,
me
we don't see the scenes, we don't know how gruesome it is or anything either.
true. It threw me back, though, to the Wendigo episode.
Yeah,
'Cause they were
it's a
always like
bear.
yeah.
Only bears.
So Dean says he remembers the name, Daniel Elkins, and he pulls out John's journal, and there is a contact number for a D. Elkins. So they're heading to Colorado. They break into Daniel's house after Dean Foley walks through the house with snow. Sam bends over right in the entryway and notice there's salt on the doormat. And he says it's clearly a ring, like a ring of salt. But we saw Daniel run inside the home and then he died. And then the police came and they were inside the home and Daniel's body wasn't there, which means somebody else, like the coroner, came and got his body and left. And then Dean walked through the door. So, how is there a ring of salt there?
That's a great question. I was gonna try and say, like, maybe he's always had a ring of salt ready to go, like, set up there, like, at all time. But, yeah, it's a weird thing to just, like, say that he's a hunter or, like, knows
Yeah.
what's gonna how to fight a supernatural thing.
Yeah, it makes no sense. There
Yeah,
wouldn't
logically, it doesn't really make much sense.
that salt would be throughout the whole house and on everybody's
Yeah,
shoes.
yeah. Because you think all the people going to the crime scene, like, right away, like, the cops in the corner and all those things would be like, "Oh, we need to preserve this salt circle, this, like, pile of salt that's on the ground that someone's probably already kicked." Like,
Mhm.
no. They're gonna assume they cracked some salt in from outside.
Or it's snow because salt is white.
Yeah, yeah, or it's, like, filled or something, like, no one would, like, think anything of that.
No, they
So,
wouldn't. I just thought that was a weird spot. I'm like, it could have been moved, like, over to the side or something.
yeah,
I don't know.
could be in front of the room, like, the other door or something.
Yeah. But then Dean sees Daniel's journal and he's, like, kinda flipping through it and he's like, "Oh, it goes back to the '60s." And my question is, would you take it?
Of course!
Yeah, me
The
too.
fuck?
They
You're a
lived.
hunter. Yeah, you're a hunter, and this guy's been hunting since the '60s? Yes, I would totally take his thing because 'cause that'd be so useful if he's already gone. Like, he's
Yes.
already dead. Like, he would want that anyway, too. That's why the hunters work in this show. Like, they don't
Mhm.
care as long as, like, people continue, right? Until the
Yeah.
job's done. So, like, they would totally be on board with this. So how do you leave this behind?
Yes. I totally would take it too. They leave all of his research there, which I think was weird.
Yeah, leave all his research, all his, like, everything. Like, you don't raid his place after that. That's crazy.
Like, obviously, nobody's coming back,
Yeah, and you have, like, your dad's journal, but, like, your dad hasn't been doing this since the '60s. You can,
right?
like, corroborate? Collaborate. No, corroborate. That's the right word,
Compare?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but corroborate's like, like, confirm. You can
Yeah.
confirm, you can double check your dad's work.
Mhm. Exactly. He has, like, 28 years on John or something of
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, why would you ever leave that? You would Sam would not. Sam would never.
Yeah.
So now the camera, it zooms out and we move out of the house and somebody is watching the outside of the house. Because we can see the brothers, like their flashlights moving through the window and somebody's watching them.
Mhm,
And then we go back inside and they're still like checking things out and they enter that like destroyed room. And
mhm.
Dean immediately notices the gun box being open, but no gun. They're both also just like touching everything and they're touching the blood.
This is a crime scene, we've been over this.
Yes. And also, you just don't touch blood. That could be very contaminated. You don't
Yeah,
know.
you don't know what they've been doing or who they've been
No,
doing.
no. But anyway, Dean sees something from the blood on the floor and he just puts a piece of paper over it and like runs a pencil over it. And then he lifts it up and he's like, Sam, do you recognize this? And then Sam is like, oh, yeah, that's a P.O. box number. And I'm like, that's blood on a piece of paper. But then Sam is like, John does this too. So it's like, or dad does this too. And it's like, okay, we're going to a P.O. box now.
Yeah, I mean, the PO box makes sense because, like, with the hunters being how they are, you don't really want, like, a mailbox.
Yes. But I was just like, you're not,
I don't know how you found that off of, but sure.
yeah. And so when they open the P.O. box, they find a piece of mail in there and it's addressed to John. So now they're back in the car and they're like, should we open it? Should we not open it? And then they hear a knock on a window, and it's just John jump scaring everybody, knocking on the
Yeah.
window, and he's, like, smiling, and then he just, like, gets in the back seat, and they're like, "Dad?"
Again, why did he leave in the first place? He clearly did not go very far from them.
Right.
So they were near each other. Like, I don't understand.
Well, he said he heard Daniel died, he came.
Still. Like, to be fair, unless there's, like, a large time jump here that we just don't get to see, which could be the case, like, our previous things could be right, and then, like, now we're in July or whatever you said.
Mhm.
So, like, we could have had, like, a month-long time skip where they've been apart, but, like, it still drives me nuts that it was 2 episodes ago that they made a whole big deal about not being able to work together and be together.
Mhm. I think from what I read was, like, from them being in New York to now, it's been, like, 2 weeks because, like, they had to travel from New York, which is on the East Coast, all the way to the West
It
Coast.
it took them 2 weeks just to get there. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So it's,
Alright.
like, probably been, a month or so since they've seen John. But John says he saw them at the house. So
Mhm.
he's the one from earlier that we saw.
Yeah, he's the POV that we got to watch him looking at the house.
He says he didn't come in, though, because he needed to make sure they weren't being followed.
This kinda stuff, like, that just doesn't make sense, bro.
No.
If they were followed, you'd be out there by yourself with the person that followed them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I don't
also, if they're
know.
being followed, you just went to them, like, went up to them, so you would be tracked by now anyway too. Like, you would have been noted. So it's like, it makes no sense. I hate John. John's just the worst, always.
He is. So John tells them that him and Daniel had, like, a falling out, but he doesn't say why, and then he's like, "Hey, can I have my letter?" The letter reveals that Daniel had this gun the entire time, and John is not happy about it. Dean tells him they found the empty case, but they didn't find a gun, and now in John fashion, he doesn't explain anything and is like, "Okay, let's go catch their trail." And Sam and Dean are like, wait a minute, like, what is even happening right now? And he says that the gun is important and that Daniel only hunted vampires.
"Hey, now we know they're vampires. Yay."
Yeah. And Dean was like, I didn't think those exist. And Sam was like, yeah, dad, you told us those weren't real. And he was like, yeah, I thought they were extinct, but apparently I was wrong. Let's go. No other explanations.
Yeah, like, this drives me insane, and I wonder if this is, like, I don't think it's, like, just, like, a plot device where it's like, "Oh, John's being like this, like, lets him give a bunch of exposition because it doesn't really. Like, even
Mhm.
later when he does give some answers, it's not like you couldn't have said that now. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't do anything, so I don't think it's the writing. I think it's just the character being just an ass. Like, he's just a bad dude. Like, he's just not that smart. Like, this is dumb. This is a very
Mhm,
stupid strategy, especially because you guys know your hunters, right? In theory, you would know these things are all everything is deadly. These vampires you've never fought before because you thought they were extinct. So, like, how are
mhm.
you not giving, like, info dumps right the fuck now, being like, "Prepare, this is what we need, this is what we need to realize." Like, he's so stupid, and it drives me up a
Or,
wall,
like, let's go back to
and
Daniel's
he's such a prick
house.
about it too.
Yeah, or, like, he should be like, "Let's go back to Daniel's house and get everything he has on vampires."
Or or even, like I said, just answer their questions now. Like, I hate that he's just so obtuse and so, like, obfuscating of every little detail ever, and then when he finally gives something in, like, a scene here, which we'll get to in a second, he kinda, like, just like, "Anything else?" And it's like, "No, yes, because 'cause you're not answering anything. Yes, there's many questions that you aren't answering."
Yes, well, that
And it
happens
just
later.
drove me up a fucking wall. I know, I'm
Yeah,
saying, like, it comes in, like, a scene, but I'm just like, "This is annoying."
yes, it is. But now he does give, like, a little bit after he says he's wrong. Well, it's kinda like a
It's a really
time.
good it's a cool shot, I think I like these kinda shots where, like, it shows the vampires doing things, so, like, it's a voiceover of him kinda, like, talking about things. But even though they are there in the scene, but, like, I like that it, like, kind of flashes to, like, him just voiceovering over things.
Yeah, it's kinda like a time lapse in a way.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Um
That's a good way to put it.
mhm. So this is Supernatural's very specific vampire lore. Because for some reason, throughout all stories, vampire lore is very different,
Yeah.
and Supernatural is no exception. John says a cross won't repel them, and the sun won't kill them, and a stake to the heart won't kill them. So literally everything you think you know about vampires, you don't for Supernatural. They they do need fresh human blood to survive though.
Mhm. And this is where I come in, because this is a lot of fun to compare and contrast a lot of what John says here with actual lore. So let's get into it.
Mhm.
Like you said, the vampire lore basically is very vast and varies greatly depending on the time and place, and basically what media we're discussing, right?
Mhm.
But this is where Supernatural diverges quite a bit from a lot of the lore. In most, if not all, vampire lore, uh, this is a weird word. Apotopaic magic,
Mm.
which is a word that basically just means like protection. It's protection magic, which could be used, which was used to repel vampires, i.e., using like symbols, sigils, or magical objects to repel vampires or evil creatures. And that does work on vampires in the lore, such as crosses, evil eyes, garlic, hawthorn and roses, holy water, etc. Those things are all used to repel vampires and evil things in general, negative energy, anything evil. That's why like the evil eye is used on like everything. But all of those do work against vampires in the lore.
Mhm.
Stakes to the heart in the folklore is like basically one of the main ways to kill a vampire.
Yeah.
So that is just incorrect in terms of like the actual lore. Because in most cultures, taking a vampire in its heart, mouth, or stomach was very common. And that's very interesting because like even like the origins of the vampire myth in general tends to believe people believe that it's basically from when people uncovered a recently deceased body for some reason. And when they looked at the body, it looked a little weird and they weren't sure quite what was happening to it, right? They didn't really understand what decomposition was or like how a body breaks down well back in those days. So when they see the decomposing body, it tends to be bloated because as the body breaks down, it releases a lot of gas. And obviously now that you don't have any, like there's no way for the gas to go, so you kind of just inflate a little bit. So it makes the body look like it's more full, like it just ate something,
Mhm. That makes a
which is
lot of
interesting.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, when the body starts to decompose, the fingernails and the hair keep growing for a little while, which
Mhm.
causes the fingernails to basically look like they've grown into like claws or like longer nails. Also, the gums on your teeth recede as you decompose too, meaning your teeth look like they've also grown,
Mm. Oh,
which
I didn't
could
know
be
that.
why people thought they had fangs. They're like, or longer teeth now. They basically like this body looks really weird. This bloating also causes blood to come out of the various orifices in the face as well.
Mm,
So, like,
mhm.
it blood will be coming out of the eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Because of that, it looks like they ate something, and they ate something bloody.
A rare steak.
Yeah, they ate something they ate something weird. Because of this, they thought it might have been a vampire. So what they did, they take a stake, you stab it in the heart, and what that does is it punctures the skin. And because of that, now the gas has somewhere to go.
Mhm.
So the gas quickly escapes. And because the gas is quickly moving like that, it can also rattle the vocal cords, almost making like a like a
Oh.
gurgling noise, or a fart if it goes out the other end. But either way, that extra noise could also make people think, "Oh, we killed it. We killed the monster," right?
Mm,
Because you killed
mhm.
it, it deflates and then breathes out its final breath, which is really fascinating to me that like would make sense why you would assume this is like some creature. So yeah, in the folklore, stake to the heart definitely worked. That was like the main thing you did. Uh, the sun not repelling them is actually pretty correct. There really isn't anything about like it being like a bad sunburn, like he says. He
Mm.
says like in the show in Supernatural, he says that it's basically just like a bad sunburn when they're out in the
Yeah.
sun. That's not quite true. Like I couldn't at least couldn't find anything like that. But they were considered nocturnal, so they did better at night. But they didn't have like a weakness to the sun.
Mhm.
But because they were nocturnal, it was basically used, especially when Count Dracula was written. It turned Count Dracula from them being nocturnal just as like a hunting method to being, oh no, the sun actually kind of harms them, and that kind of kept going. But
Mhm.
in Dracula, it wasn't even that the sun was like a fatal weakness. That's actually a newer version of
Oh.
vampire myth that like turns them into like, oh, when they turn to dust when they hit the sun. That's like a newer thing. Because in Count Dracula, he could go out in the sun, it was fine. All of his powers were just taken down a bit. Like he was just weakened. Like he couldn't transform and he couldn't use his hypnosis. He
Uh,
couldn't, yeah, he had some super strength, but not all of it. Like it was like the sun weakened him, but not it hurt him. So like
mhm.
kind of like with that, like a bad sunburn would be kind of like, you're weakened. You don't want to really move as much in the sun because like that kind of sucks. Right.
Mhm.
That one's actually pretty more accurate. He also said that they have an insatiable bloodlust and that fresh blood is the only thing that they can drink on to survive. The bloodlust part is also a very common thing in folklore and in Count Dracula, where the vampire couldn't really control their desire to feed on fresh human blood, and pretty much all of them have basically all the folklore has them as like blood sucking entities that prey on living victims. Like, they either kill the victims during that feeding process or you basically you don't go after dead things, so that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like because when you eat something, you're not gonna eat a dead thing that's, like, long dead, right?
No.
It's gotta be fresh. So, yeah, so that is pretty accurate. Every victim of vampires has been living. There's no, like, "Oh, you can drink a corpse's blood," or, like, stale blood. I know,
Mhm.
like, in some of the more modern interpretations, that has become a thing, 'cause it's an interesting story to tell, like, what if they could, like, make wine out of blood, basically, you know?
Yeah.
John also goes on to say that they were human once, so it's hard to identify who is a vampire.
Mhm.
Most vampire lore has them as being a normal person or, like, a witch or something who dies and then gets turned into a vampire, so that's pretty accurate. They all were pretty much once human that turned into vampires. This is just a random aside that I found out. One interesting way to become a vampire in Chinese and Slavic folklore is that a corpse that is jumped over by an animal, especially a dog or a cat, they thought they would become a vampire.
Interesting. I don't know what to think of that. Mm.
I don't know why, but yeah.
Okay.
And another fun thing that I found out was one way that they identified a vampire, like by going to a graveyard, and while they were asleep, essentially while they were resting in their grave after a long night of hunting, right? You bring into the graveyard a virgin boy riding a virgin stallion and lead the virgin boy on the virgin stallion through the graveyard. And wherever the horse freaks the fuck out at a grave, that one was a vampire. So then they dug it up and then they looked like how I described before. So they staked it and killed it and reburied it or burned it
Why do they gotta be virgins?
because they're good, like good and pure, right? It goes back to the whole like purity thing of like a lot of
Yeah.
religions being like, oh, when you're a virgin, you're very pure and all that stuff. So it's like, the inverse of the pure evil of the vampire. But yeah, I thought it was amusing. I'm like, that's such a roundabout way
It
to
is.
do this.
When, like, a horse will freak out over a lot of things.
Yeah, but that's why it worked, right? And then you dug him up and it looked like a vampire.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
like, it make I see where their logic was.
That's a lot
Yeah,
of
that was a lot just to basically cooperate and also, tell you where it disagreed from what John was saying about the lore. But we'll get into it a little
mhm.
bit more. There's more things I have to say later on here.
So did, your research say anything about the vampires, sparkling in the sunlight?
No,
No.
that is specifically a Twilight.
Yeah, I know, we all knew that when that happened,
Yeah, I know.
that became a thing, it's like, "Okay, what a weird twist."
But
Anyway,
again, it makes some sense in the way of, like, not the sparkling part, but, like, the whole it doesn't really bother them much because it shouldn't. In
it
the
doesn't
lore, it shouldn't bother them.
it doesn't bother them, but the whole world knows your skin is different.
Well, yeah, 'cause you're in the sunlight and you're just, like, glistening.
Yes. Alright, so let's zoom back in to the TV show. We see a car driving down the road. This is also when John is, like, explaining vampire lore.
Mhm,
We see a car driving down the road, and then the woman from the beginning telling a man that this is his, as in, like, his hunt. So he decides to just lay down in the middle of the road,
mhm,
and so the car that, the couple in the car stops, and the man tells the woman in the car to call 911, and he gets out of the car to check on the body, and when he goes to check the pulse, the vampire laying down turns his head, and literally all of his teeth come out. It's looking like Jaws up in here. It's not just the
mhm,
2 fangs. He gets, like, 3 rows of teeth.
mhm. It's really cool.
Yes, so they have n supernatural vampires have a whole new set of teeth just come in and go away. Imagine your gums. That would be awful.
It's
Any
it's interesting though, because like, that's another, like, way they make it feel more biological than, like, supernatural because, like, they have retractable fangs like that, and that is a thing in nature. There are, like not, like, retractable, like, thing to the maybe if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. Gotta get one in every episode. But,
Okay.
there might be animals that have, like, fully retractable, but there is, like, ones there is a very common thing, like, even, like, snake fangs and stuff, like,
Mhm.
they aren't out all the time, they go in and out. Like, that is a thing that happens, so, like, the fact that all their fangs are retractable is, like, a really cool way to make it, like, feel, again, more real.
It does, but then it's, like, 3 extra rows of teeth,
It
2 or
looks
3. It was a
cool.
lot of extra teeth. Like how sharks have layered teeth? That's exactly, like,
Mhm.
what they gave their vampires, and I'm like, "Man, that would rip up your face, like, your mouth every time that
Might look like a
happened."
bear attack.
Yeah, it might. The brothers are sleeping now. I guess, John was like, "Get some sleep." Except John didn't sleep
Mhm,
because he's holding on to a police radio, and they hear about the 2 people in the road, or, like, that they're missing,
mhm.
and he gets the boys up, and he was like, "It's the vampires." And Sam asks how he knows, and John just says, "Just follow me, okay?"
No, not okay. What do you fucking mean, "Just follow me"? Like, that's such a stupid thing. Just answer some questions.
Like, why do you suspect it's vampires? Just say.
It's 2 missing people. Like, why does that vampires?
Yes.
Do you just assume it's vampires? Then be like, "I assume that's our people. Let's go check it out."
Yes,
Don't be
exactly.
like, "Just follow me, okay?" Like, what are you doing? Like, you're so stupid. You're not a drill
Mhm.
sergeant, man.
Now we see the brothers at their car, and John is talking to the cops. And Sam says he doesn't understand why they couldn't go over with him. And Dean says, "Don't tell me it's already starting." Because, of course, when dad is around, Dean is going to take his side.
Yeah, that shit drove me nuts too, but
It changes.
I know. I was about to say, we have some character growth this episode finally
Yeah.
on this front.
John comes back and says it looks like they are heading west. Sam again is like, "How do you know?" And
Mhm,
Dean kind of prompts him to stop. And Sam is like, "No, I want to know how he knows."
mhm.
And John pulls out a tooth. It is literally a tooth. In my note, I wrote a vampire fang because that's what we know it is, but no. For all intents and purposes, it looks like a tooth. And Dean is like, "Oh, a vampire fang." And then John is like, "Well, it's not actually a fang, it's a tooth." These like their fangs are retractable or something.
Yeah. And, like, it's a weird thing to say because, like, you don't have to get pedantic. We all know what he meant,
Yes.
but technically, John is correct here. It's the whole square rectangle thing where all fangs are teeth, but not all teeth are fangs. And
Mhm.
John is correct because a fang is a specific type of tooth that is longer than the others and is used for specific purposes that the other teeth aren't used for, such
Mhm.
as like a snake's fangs, where they're used to inject venom, or even like our canine teeth, which are more specialized for ripping and tearing of like meat.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so their teeth are technically all the same and they all have the same purpose. So they are technically just teeth and not fangs. So he's technically right, but like, what's the point? Like, why do you gotta be a dick to your kid about it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you gotta
Yeah.
be a dick? He's just a dick.
Or yes. Exactly. He did an,
You
actually
don't
to
need to
them.
exactly. You don't need to be this pedantic. You're not on Dropout.
No. And then he says, "Any more questions?" And I say, "Yes."
Yes.
How did you prove to me at all this random tooth you found on the ground is a vampire tooth? How do you know where they're heading? How do you know this tooth means they are heading west?
Yeah, like, did you talk to the cops? Did you find a footprint? Do you have an inside person? Like, what do you know, man? Like, I don't and, like, it irritated the shit out of me when he said, "Any more questions?" Because it was like that smug, like, "See, I told you just to trust me." And it's like, "No, dude.
Yes,
That's not how anything works.
it's
You're such
not.
a prick." Like, he's just the worst. I can't stand him. I can't wait until spoiler alert, he gets killed off at, like in, like, 2 seasons. Fuck this guy. Well, gets killed off, again, spoiler, for the first time of, like, 7 that he does, but because everyone in the show dies and comes back 7 times. But
It is what
I
it
just can't
is.
I can't stand John. He's just the worst.
Well, apparently me and you are the only 2 people that have questions because Sam doesn't have any.
No, Sam's is probably just defeated at this point. I'm just like, it's not even fucking worth it at this point."
Yeah, but so then to just be even more rude as he's walking away, he tells Dean to touch up the car or it'll rust, and he says, "I wouldn't give you the damn thing if I knew you were gonna ruin it."
Like, again, why do you gotta be a dick? Like, that is you don't need to say that ever. Like, that is only in this entire show for him to show how much of a dick he is to his kid.
Yes.
Like, he is just written to be the worst possible person ever.
He was like, "Oh, I yelled at your brother, so now I gotta give it to you as well. Fair is fair, right?"
Either that or he's just like, again, just a prick.
Yes, exactly. Because he knows
Like,
Dean cares about the car, so he's like, "I'm just
yeah,
gonna tell you that you're not doing good enough."
yeah, you're just never good enough. And it's like, go fuck yourself, dude. Yeah, I can't stand him. The entire episode, like, as I was watching the episode for our review of this, I was literally just like, fuck you. I hate you so much. I was just like yelling at my monitor how much I hated this guy.
I watched it before you, and I told you you were gonna hate it, like, hate
Yeah.
John. I was like, "Be prepared, you're gonna rant a lot about John."
And yes, that is correct.
So, in the car, Dean is reading something, and he's like, "Vampire nests are groups of 8 to 10. Smaller groups go out to hunt. Victims are taken back to the nest where they're kept alive for days to weeks, slowly bleeding out."
And, this is actually not even remotely a thing, outside of modern depictions of vampires, like the whole nest thing. That is not a thing. Back in folklore, like back in the days, these creatures were very isolated. Even going back to Count Dracula, it was just him. He lived alone in a mansion. Basically, when it came to, like, Lost Boys and, like, things like that, were, like, more modern ones where they started going in groups, and then it became like, oh, like, now it's like, there's one at the top that if you kill them, all of them die. Like that whole thing became like more of a modern thing, from what I could
Mhm.
tell. Most of the ancient myths are just like, hey, in our little village, there's a vampire running around killing some people. Let's kill the vampire. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a one-off thing versus it being like, oh, there's 8 to 10 that do all this stuff, and also the victims weren't like taken anywhere. The victims just died in their houses mostly, in like folklore. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, vampires are used as an excuse for, like, people dying of, like, diseases or, like, things like that. There was one specific one that was, like, people speculated that it might be, like, rabies could be, like, a
Mm.
reason why vampire myth kinda comes up because, like, you get hostile, you act really erratic, like, if you bite someone, you can infect them.
Mhm.
It's very, like, you could see this, and, like, also vampires back in the day became bats, also became, like, dogs, like, things they could transform into. And how do you get rabies? From dogs and, like, maybe bats? I don't know if I assume bats could carry rabies, but I know, like, dogs, right?
It
So,
could also be, like, werewolf lore too.
yeah, exactly. No, for sure.
Mhm.
I think that might also be a cause of that too. You get bit by a dog that has rabies, then you kinda go fucking insane. It's like, yeah, you're probably a werewolf.
Yeah. You get by a bit by a bat that has rabies, you are a vampire.
Mhm.
Something. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense.
But I like this as a concept of, like, the nest and the bringing people back and feeding it. Like, I think that's a cool concept for, like, a new like, modern interpretations of vampires.
It is. It's not my favorite telling of vampires, I will say. I like it more when they're either isolated or more integrated into society, not the, like, they live in a nest or a den and on their own, and it's like, I don't know. It's just not my favorite, but
Yeah.
it's okay that it's different.
Yeah, I think the main reason why too is because, like, 1, if they're a group of people kidnapping people, you can't really be in the middle of society. You have to
Yeah.
be, like, kinda on the outskirts. And also, they've said before, they should be extinct. So these are, like, a very, very small minority of these vampires existing at the moment. So they might have to work together even though they'd rather be isolated.
Yeah. That's fair.
It's like a necessity thing, which I found kinda neat. Also, again, this is another random thing, but I like how it's really interesting to look at the language that they use to describe vampires, because for all intents and purposes, vampires are just humans with, like, extra powers, right?
Mhm.
So they're people with extra powers. But instead of, like, calling them, "Oh, they live in this, like, shack out here," they call it a nest because that's
Yeah.
an animal term. They use a bunch of animal terms to describe vampires, so then it, like, basically absolves them of any kind of, anything because 'cause they're killing monsters, they're killing beasts, they're killing animals, they're not killing people,
Mhm.
which I found interesting, that they call it nests and things like that, where it's, like, very animal terms.
Well, they talked about that. Well, they've talked about this a couple times, but mostly in the skin episode, because the guy who was the shapeshifter was saying the same thing, like, he was just a human, but he had the ability to shift, and, like,
Mhm,
the brothers were saying, like, their point was, yes, you could live in society and you could fit in, but instead you chose to, like, torture and kill people.
mhm. The shapeshifter has a lot less, like, ground to stand on. I feel like
Mhm.
the vampires have a little bit more because, like, they can't control what they have to eat to survive.
Yeah.
Like, you can't control that, right? Like, you can't to that level where if, like, their only food source is blood, like, what are you gonna do, die?
There's so many people out here in this world, there is going to be people who would consent to being your, like, food source.
I'm sure.
No need to kidnap and kill anybody when somebody would do it consensually. But anyway, going back into the car, Sam is looking mad and Dean is like, "What's happening? Like, what are you so mad about?" And
Mhm.
Sam says it would just be nice if dad told them things. And Dean's
Correct.
yes. So then Dean says, "So it is starting." And Sam says he's happy his dad is there and they're all together, but he hates feeling like they're being treated like children and
Totally.
how they're told things on a need to know basis.
Mhm.
Dean says it's for protection because in their job, there is no margin for error.
That
But, like,
line
wouldn't giving them all the information prevent error?
exactly. That line pissed me off. I'm like, "What do you mean there's no room for error? Then why the fuck are you being left in the dark? What?"
Yeah, because,
Like, there's no logic here, and it drove me insane.
what if when they go into the nest, which we're getting to, they ask John if they're asleep, and John says they are, but they can wake up. So what if they
Mhm.
didn't ask that or John didn't tell them that and they just go in the nest being, like, loud as hell thinking that they're gonna stay asleep and then they all get, like, slaughtered?
Exactly. It drove me insane. I'm just like, "How do you defend this?" Like, this is just, like, poor like, it I understand, again, it's not poor writing because I think these make sense in character
Mhm,
because Dean's just, like, brainwashed by his dad basically at the point still, but
mhm.
it's just, like, infuriating. So I'm like, "There's no logic here. If there's no room for error, you need to be fully informed.
Yes, exactly.
That's how you don't make errors."
And Sam asks him if he's just cool with dad stepping in and running the whole show. And Dean hesitates and he stutters for a moment. And then he says, if that's what it takes.
Yeah, and, like, it was very obvious that, like, he meant it in a way of, like, yes, because that's what dad would want, is the dad's orders, but you could tell that he didn't he didn't actually believe that
Yes, he doesn't believe it, but he's been conditioned to.
to accept what his dad says.
Yeah, exactly. So now we, as the audience, are in the vampire's nest watching them have like just a great time. They're dancing and drinking, and we see the couple from the road tied up. One of the vampires is forcing them to drink beer, and when the girl drinks the beer, she spits it back in his face. And that guy was not happy, and he kinda wanted to just kill her, but she was like, "Wait for Luther." And
Mhm.
some man walks through the door, and I'm gonna assume that is Luther. They didn't
Mhm.
say.
Yeah.
But then the woman we see from, like, the bar in Daniel's house, she, like, runs and jumps on him, and they start making out like they've never made out before, seen a
Yeah.
person before. She then tells him they have presents for him, and he says the girl looks interesting, but the man doesn't, and to treat themselves to him. So he just gets eaten right there.
In front of her.
Yeah.
Just yep. It's brutal.
Mhm. So you find out this woman vampire that's been here since the beginning, her name is Kate. And Kate shows Luther his second gift, which is the gun. She says she caught Elgin's scent and took it, and she said she made him suffer for what he did to Luther's family.
Yep.
And Luther says she shouldn't have done that because there are others like him, and revenge means nothing if you are dead.
Mhm.
And then she kind of just like ignores that and says she thought he would like the gun because it looks like it was made around the time he was born. And
Mhm.
she obviously has no idea what this gun is because she was like, he should have known better than to use a gun. But Luther knows exactly what this gun is. He says, like,
Yeah.
this isn't an ordinary gun.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you could clearly tell that she was like, "Oh, shit, I didn't think you'd be upset, I thought you'd be happy."
Yeah, exactly.
But he's not wrong, like, when one goes down, they tend to come in flocks to come get their revenge.
Yeah, because 'cause they're like, "Why did my hunter friend die?" Like, they would know better than to do that. So now we see Dean on the phone. He tells Sam that dad said to get off on the next exit. And Sam is just, like, so pissed off, and he drives super fast and cuts off John's truck with his car, and so they both have to, like, stop.
Like, fully, like, turns it sideways to block the
Yes.
road.
Yeah. And they both get out of the car, and he tells John that they need answers about where they were going. And also, he wants to know why the last time they saw each other, John said they needed to be apart, and now they're being told they have to help him.
Mhm.
John tells him they don't have time and to get back in the car. Sam says no. And then John says that's an order. And Sam doesn't care.
Mhm.
Dean pushes them apart. And as Sam is walking back to the car, and just to get one more jab, he says, "This is why I left."
Mhm.
And that sends John into like a whole spiral. And he says Sam left him and his brother when they needed him. And Sam says John closed the door, not him, because John told him never to come back if he left.
Mhm.
And at this point, John is like squared up to him. Like he was even grabbing Sam's shirt
Mhm.
and like was in his face, like, they were, like, nose to nose touching,
Mhm.
and Dean separates them again and says, "That's enough," and then he looks at John and says, like, "And that includes you."
Yeah, that was good because, like, when Sam walks away, Dean, like, just, like, kinda pissed looked at him and goes, "That includes you, like, you need to fucking chill too."
Yes, I think
Which is good.
I it kinda makes me wonder if, because 'cause we've had this talk before, if John was, like, physically abusive, but, like, it makes me wonder if that was one of the first times or the first time he ever did that to Sam, because this is when Dean kinda starts changing his mind about John. Like, this is kind of the
Uh,
turning point.
my assumption was that this was kind of where they were at their whole lives. Like, it
Mm.
wouldn't surprise because, like, again, this is what we talked about before, time differences, right? Back
Mhm,
when they were growing up, that kinda stuff was much more normalized and much more like, "That's fine, you can do that," even though, like, it's obviously ridiculous nowadays.
mhm,
But, like, I think that would not surprise me if that is not the first time that's happened,
yeah,
because it didn't seem like it was, right? Like,
mhm,
Sam didn't back down or get, like, a worried look like, "Oh, he's," whatever. He, like, just, like, kinda coldly stared at him and, like, "I'm not budging," which is, like,
mhm,
I don't know, it makes me feel like that has happened before, and this is Dean finally being like, "You need to chill out too," because Dean's
yeah,
also now an adult, like, they're all adults now, you know?
yeah, exactly.
So the dynamics have changed a little.
That's also fair. So now we're going back to the vampire area.
Also, just with
Oh,
the way that he did, like you said, he spiraled off of that one comment.
mhm,
I The fact that he went from 0 to 100 that quick, there's no shot. If they fought a bunch, there's no way that's the first time that they've ever gotten each other's faces like that.
that's true. Cause
No
like,
shot. He has this temper of a fucking 3-year-old.
and
Like, he immediately got set off by him saying, like, "That's why I left." Really? That's what sets you off to the point where you, like, full on about to fucking fight your adult son? Like, crazy. When
and
he was like, with what Sam said, he's clearly in the fault. Like, it was his fault.
mhm,
So, like, yeah, I'm sure this has happened before.
and, like, Sam knew what to say. Like, Sam knew that was gonna make him mad, right? But as
Oh,
we
yeah.
keep saying, it's not ever really the fault of the kid, it's the parent. Sam wants
Mhm,
John to know he is upset, and John is not listening.
mhm.
So then Sam was like, "Fine, I'm gonna say something that's going to make you upset."
Well, I don't blame him. I would've said some shit like that too.
Yes. And it's just like, example, "This is why I left.
Mhm.
You don't tell me anything."
And then expect me to blindly follow your orders.
Yes, exactly, and it also goes back to their, being like the vessels of Michael and Lucifer. But now we're gonna go back to the vampires. Kate and not Lucifer, Luther are, like, getting frisky in front of the girl that's all tied up. And
Mhm.
Luther tells the girl, he's like, "I know you like watching, and I do too." And it's like, "Okay." And
Yeah,
it's
it's real weird.
and then instead of just making her feed off of one of them to turn, Kate puts her own blood in her mouth and then, like, makes out with the girl that's tied up. Well,
Yeah.
she
And
kisses her, the girl does not kiss back.
yeah. In the
Yeah.
folklore, there's really not much about vampires turning other people into vampires. As again, they're more like isolated monsters that just ate people rather than turning people into vampires to keep them with them. And it obviously changed once again with Count Dracula being able to hypnotize people and then slowly feeding on them and forcing his victim to drink his blood to turn them as well. And in that lore, if Dracula dies, it would undo all of the people that he turned into basically into vampires would be like freed from their vampirism or further like whatever they're going through. Which again, is I assume where a lot of the modern depictions of you kill the main vampire, the rest of the vampires go too. You know,
Yeah.
with it coming, and then another thing I wanted to mention too in antiquity in the folklore, there really isn't this whole like sexual nature to vampires. It is very, 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 very prominent in like everything from Count Dracula forward. um,
Mhm.
the it I think it has something to do with, like, almost like a conflation of things, where there is stories of, like, demons that, like, incubus, succubus that go into at night and, like, basically have sex with people to, like, you know, be evil. Um, uh,
Mhm.
but, like, so, like, maybe that conflated with it, but I think it also just has to do with, like, the whole dreamy, gothic, like that whole thing. Like it's like it became romanticized. And then it basically just kind of kept going into being like hypersexualized.
Mhm.
Like pretty much every modern depiction of vampires are hypersexualized.
And then also, I think some of it also has to do with it being a metaphor of female satisfaction, as we were talking about purity
Uh-huh.
earlier. And you can see this throughout a lot of vampire stories and lore is a lot of
Uh-huh.
the time the vampire preys on a virgin woman, and if she doesn't die, she's, like, condemned in her village for no longer being pure. So it's like she
Uh-huh.
lost her virginity or she was pleasuring herself, and
Uh-huh.
that's also, like it's like a metaphor for that as well.
Yeah, that's why, like, this is, like, kind of a tangent, but, like, the new Nosferatu movie, like, the new remake,
Mhm.
it very much emphasized that as a thing with a
Yeah.
lot of the transforming or, like, mind control-y kinda stuff that Nosferatu does to his victim is in, like, a sexual nature, and, like, a lot of it is very intended to be reminiscent of a sexual experience, which
Yes.
is, it is like yeah, you're right, it's like a metaphor for, like, the purity and all that stuff too.
And then, like, the woman is deemed, like, hysterical or mentally
Yeah.
unstable because
Yeah, and
she
that's
wants that. Mhm.
Yeah, and that's, like, the whole story of the new Nosferatu too, so spoilers, sorry. Well,
It's
not I
so
guess not
old,
really spoilers. Yeah, I would say this movie's, like, from, like, forever ago,
and the book
but yeah,
yeah.
so
But, yeah, that I think what you're saying is right, though, that it just, like, evolved over time, and then they made them, like, gothy sexual and, like
Uh-huh.
and if they're able to seduce people, that's an easy way to get prey like, there to prey on them. It's like,
Yeah, and I
"Let's
think
get
it
them
is,
into
like
bed."
yeah, and it's kinda like what you were saying too about it being, like, almost like a metaphor for that too, because it's like these people live wild and free, they're partying, they're having sex, they're doing all, like, the rebellious, antisocial, like, the stuff you're not supposed to do in a society
Mhm.
according to, like, societal norms. So it, like, adds a layer of, like, forbiddenness, right? Like, that
Yes.
whole, like, "Ooh, something crazy."
Yeah, something's not right. And now, going back to the vampires, the Winchesters find them, and John finally says the only way to kill them is by beheading.
Mhm,
They do sleep during the day, but they can wake up. John has a super cool setup of weapons in the back of his truck.
mhm.
It's so much cooler than what the boys have.
Yeah, it's like what they have, but, like, better.
Yes. But, John's truck has, like, a whole bed, not just a trunk.
Mhm,
But now he's telling them about the Colt, and he's like, "It happened during Halley's Comet, like every other event that happens in every source of media." And a hunter made a Colt with 13 bullets, and he used it 6 times, and then he disappeared. Who knows
mhm,
what happened? And then Daniel found it.
mhm.
And then they say that gun can kill anything supernatural. And the Colt has an inscription on it that's in Latin, "Non timbo mala,"
Not non Tamebo Mala.
and on the barrel, it has a pentagram. That's on the barrel, and the pentagram has it's on a pentagram on the handle.
Mhm. Yeah, this is an interesting thing because, like, uh, comets in general in history were obviously seen by many ancient people, especially like Halley's Comet because it's predictable. It's a certain cycle, right?
Like every
That it comes
76 years.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
every 76 years, it comes by again. But comets in general throughout history were seen by people as an omen and usually a very bad one. And they're usually attributed to bad things happening like deaths of rulers, defeats in battles, famines, etc.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can too. Because they were seen all the way back through recorded times, all the way back to the Babylonians, and across like every continent has talked about like a thing in the sky, a fireball in the sky, a sword in the sky hanging over us, like all these like things. Because like, what the fuck is that? Um, since they had to rely on the sky so much and the world around them to tell them when to plant crops, when to do
Mhm.
different things, when the cycles were happening, they looked up at the sky a lot and they saw the consistent cycle of the celestial bodies of like the moon and the sun and the stars kind of just doing their thing and doing the same thing because they're
Mhm.
pretty consistent for the most part. So when suddenly the normal nighttime, or in some cases the daytime, the skies were drastically changed, lit up by a bright streaking object across the sky, I, understandably, they were scared and worried. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yes, and
The
you're
world
like
is ending. The gods are pissed.
and they're like, "My great-grandfather told me about this because it comes around every, like, 80 years." And they
Yeah.
didn't live very long. So
Yeah. And in general, in the folklore, they were always pretty much associated with bad things. But now that as we come to understand comets more, they've gained a more of a positive, like awe-inspiring kind of persona that they were in previous times.
Mhm,
And I think Halley Comet, the main reason it's used as this trope in like most media things, like you said, like a lot of things come under the sky of the Halley's Comet or under the sky of a comet or whatever the hell, something like that,
mhm,
is because that now that we understand the cycles, and like with most ancient things, with a cycle, they tend to be used as like a great magical power, having like, this energy to it that's like, ooh, it's special, right?
mhm.
It's still special. Like we didn't like, have an opportunity to see Halley's Comet yet. We haven't. We won't for like 30 years. We just got unlucky. We missed the time window. The last one was like 1984. It's like, well, that sucks. So we don't get to see that for a while.
Yeah.
But if you do, I mean, it's special, right? It's something cool, a sign from God or something like that. So it would make sense that when people start to recognize these cycles and can consistently use them, they use that power to, enhance things or make things better, which in this case, making a cult with power of the Hades Comet. And as for the cult inscription, the Latin, it basically means I will not fear evil.
Mm, mhm.
And the pentagram is obviously an ancient protective sigil that goes all the way back to the Sumerians. So it would make sense to put that on there as like a warding thing against, evil things.
It would. It makes me wonder, I saw somebody ask this question online when they were describing this cult lore and that only 13 bullets were made. They were like,
Mhm.
"Can you reuse the shot bullets? Like, if they don't disappear, can you just go pick it up and put it back in the gun, or is it like a one and done?" And I'm like, "I assume it's one and done."
I assume it's one and done based on how this vampire goes at the end, but we'll get to there because that scene was cool.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, that would be too easy. Magic things are never that easy.
No. And it's 13 specifically because 13's like a magical number, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now they're all sneaking into the nest. They're quiet like ninjas. All of them, like, all the vampires are sleeping in hammocks, except for Luther and Kate. They're in a bed. Sam finds their victim tied up. John spots Holt, and Dean finds all these other people in a cage.
Mhm.
They are trying to save everyone as quietly as possible, except they don't know that the girl tied up is a brand new vampire.
Yeah.
And she wakes up as Sam is untying her and she starts to scream, which wakes up everybody else.
Mhm.
John breaks a window because while the sun doesn't kill them, they still don't like it.
Yeah.
And the brothers get out and they're like, "Oh my god, what happened to dad?" Okay, unsure how John makes it out of there because he had to go down like some stairs. And he was in a corner. Who knows what happened, but he ran out into the forest. He survived. And none of the vampires are dead.
Mhm.
So again, I don't know. We don't know what John did. He
Yeah.
teleported.
Mhm.
And then Dean's like, "What do we do?" And then John says, "You need to find the nearest funeral home because once a vampire has your scent, it's for life."
And that's one thing that, again, I really like that Supernatural does, but making the vampires feel like more like biological creatures rather than undead corpses. Because like the idea of a vampire getting your scent and then being able to track you forever isn't really a thing in the folklore, like I said before. But it, like I said, that inviting in invites for life.
Mhm.
So it's like it can see like the parallels there. Um, which is really interesting because, like, they also have an ability in some depictions, like Count Dracula and Nosferatu, once the vampires have connected with a person, they could basically, like, go into their mind and speak to them through their dreams or through their brain,
Mhm.
and were connected to them as long as they were alive and kinda knew where they were, so they could go to them. So, like, it still kind of follows with some of the more modern lore, but, like, ancient lore, this isn't a thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. For sure, I didn't even think about that. That's a good way to look at it. So they're, like, staying in a cabin. Maybe it's a motel that looks like a cabin. I'm just gonna call it a cabin. John has Dean go to a morgue to get dead man's blood.
Mhm,
So while Dean is gone, John tells Sam that when he and Dean were born, he put $100 a month into a savings account for them for a college fund. And he says he never wanted this life for them. So Sam is like, "Then why were you so mad when I left?" John says after their mother passed, all he saw was evil and wanted to keep them safe. And
mhm,
he says somewhere along the way he stopped being a father and became a drill sergeant. And then he said he thought about how Sam would be alone and vulnerable. Then
mhm,
I say, okay, then why would you tell him to never come back?
mhm.
And then why would you not explain this then?
I think really it's just him coming to this realization after their confrontation earlier. He did a little introspection and actually started realizing his mistakes and is, like, now owning up to them. That's my only explanation, is, like, back then
Yeah.
he thought he was right. Now he realizes he wasn't,
Yes. And
which I'm, like, good. He at least is getting some kind of growth.
I also thought this was some kind of reflection, but then like later when he's like tells them, "You're gonna go do all of these things and then you're gonna leave me and you're not gonna fight with me ever again." I'm like, "Okay, John, you just like undid all of that."
He's still a deeply flawed person.
Yes. But then John says he couldn't accept that him and Sam were different, to which
Mhm.
Sam says they're not different. And I agree. That's like why they don't get along. Usually, if people
Yeah.
are very similar, they don't get along. And then Sam asks what happened to the college fund. And John says he spent it all on ammo. And they just laugh about that.
I mean, I think that was a kind of a cute moment. I
Yeah.
did like that moment because it was like John just kinda was like, again, in this moment of self-reflection is like, "I spent it on ammo." And then, like, that's, like, the answer you expect from him. So that's
Yes.
why, like, Sam kinda just smiles and laughs 'cause, like, "Yep, that's him," you know? And,
Hmm.
like, they both realize it at that like, I think that's a good moment.
Yeah, it is. So Dean comes back with a mason jar full of blood from the morgue, dead man's blood specifically, not fresh man's blood or a live man's blood, I guess.
Mhm.
So now we see Dean out on the side of the road pretending to have car trouble, and Kate shows up. She says she can give him a lift back to her place. Dean says he draws the line at necrophilia.
Which I love. That was so funny.
It was so funny. That she slaps him and he falls and is now surrounded by 2 other vampires. She's able to pick him up by the whole face, like, she has her hand, like, under his chin and is lifting him in
Mhm.
the air.
Super strength.
She kisses him, and Dean says he never stays long, especially never for eternity.
Mhm.
John shoots an arrow through 2 of them, and then he says, like, "Dead man's blood is poisonous to vampires." And then he says, "Vampires mate for life." So he says he's gonna keep her alive and, while the others, they're gonna behead them. And he
Mhm.
explained that the dead man's blood doesn't kill them, it just makes them sick, and it will eventually wear off.
What I could find about this, the dead man's blood really isn't a thing, like, in folklore at all. But it would make some sense, with the fact that they need fresh blood to live, so the blood of a dead person would be kinda toxic. And in general, to people, it also is toxic to drink, dead people blood because by the time they're dead, they've brought like, the blood is being infected with all the dying everything,
Mhm.
So it's just like it's bad blood, right? So it makes sense that it'd be poisonous. As for the mating for life thing, I thought that was weird because
Mhm.
vampire again, they weren't really sexual creatures. They just kind of ate things. But over time, and thanks to again to Bram Stoker, our best friend, they became more broody and sexy. And their attacks became more sexual as well. But there's nothing like about mating for life. The only thing I could like kind of make a parallel to was that like Dracula targeted in the story of Dracula, he basically targeted one woman and Nosferatu as well. targeted one woman specifically, and that was like who they
Yeah,
went after, right? Like for those things. So like it would make sense where it's like there kind of is like an obsessive nature to them in that way. So I guess it makes sense again with like the modernization of it makes sense. But like I thought that was a little odd. The whole like
yeah,
mating again. They also used mating for life. Mating is such an animal term.
yeah, it
So
is.
it's like again, they're like dehumanizing these things so it justifies them killing them,
Yeah,
which I find interesting.
it is. And upon thinking about this, I really do not like that the title of this episode is Dead Man's Blood because it's basically irrelevant. All it knocks her out for like what, 10 minutes?
Yeah, it makes her like powers stop working
It's not
pretty much.
even a like it's not even a way to kill them. And I'm
Yeah, I
like,
thought that was a weird thing too, that the title was called it. I'm like, that's not that even important. Like, it doesn't even like it's not even the outcome of the episode.
it just makes it easier in a way to stop them, but it's only a temporary stop. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
like it.
and it's only used against one person.
Yes. He doesn't even well, I think Dean uses it later, maybe, if it's on every arrow they have, but, like
Sure, but I'm saying like the big bad guy that they end up killing at the end of this episode. Spoiler for like 5 minutes from now. Um,
yeah,
they don't even use dead man's blood on him.
no, they don't. So it's just like, I don't know, why is that the name
Yeah,
of this episode? They should have just stuck to their normal method and just named it, like, Vampire's Nest or something like that. So John tells them once they get rid of the leader, the brothers need to leave as fast as possible. Dean says, "Well, you can't take care of all of these vampires by yourself." And John says it doesn't matter because he'll leave Kate and take the colt. And no, he doesn't want to meet up after because he plans on leaving them again to kill this demon alone. So that conversation he had with Sam earlier, all of the feelings are gone because Sam is now pissed again. And
mm-hmm.
he says he needs to stop treating them like children. Jo-
Agreed.
John says he's just trying to keep them safe.
Which again makes no sense because if they do this, they kill the one and then they all leave. The vampire, you just got done saying the vampires have your scent for life.
Yes.
You just killed their boss. Of course they're gonna come after you. Like, they're gonna come after them, specifically. Those 2,
Hmm.
your boys that you're trying to keep safe. Like, so you're not keeping them safe. And also, if this demon is such a big deal, he can just fucking around with them as much as they want to. They've already done it. Like,
Hmm.
again, the logic doesn't make sense, and it drives me
No.
insane.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Mhm,
And surprisingly here, Dean actually speaks up and says that's a bunch of crap. And
mhm.
literally everybody's surprised. Like Sam and John are staring at him with their eyes like wide open.
Yeah, like, what?
Dean says exactly what we said on that episode we saw Megan from like everything they've been through. John obviously isn't worried about their safety. Like
He's
he's
sending them on missions to go hunt
yeah.
things.
And the one time he saw them, they were like covered in blood and like cut up
Yeah.
and like what? John says the demon is very bad. And if his kids are there, then he can't make the same moves if he's worried about his kids staying alive. So Dean says, like, oh, so you can't be like as reckless,
Mhm.
basically. And he says he refuses to watch his kids die and he doesn't expect to make it out alive. So Dean says they're stronger as a family. And John just responds by saying they need to do their job and to get out of an area, and that's an order.
I hate this man.
You hate that he says everything's in order.
Yeah, go shove your orders up your ass. Like, that's insane. Like, he's just a moron.
Mhm.
Or he's just a narcissist, like a complete narcissist who just thinks he is so amazing and his kids are inept. Like, and I don't think that's it. I think he's just a very flawed and very traumatized person, but he is also just an asshole.
And if you think kind of in nicer ways, this is what Sarah told Sam last episode when
Mhm.
Sam was telling her she couldn't come along because she would get hurt. And she was like, that is
Yep.
archaic. I can take care of myself.
Yep.
And that is what Sam is trying to tell John. big circle,
Mhm.
big trauma circle happening.
Mhm.
So we're going back to the vampires. Luther finds out they cut off the heads of the other two, and Kate is missing. But Luther smells her scent and knows she's in a truck that is driving by. So now John is looking out his rearview mirror and sees them all in cars coming for him.
One thing is really fascinating too. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but beheading was also a very common way to get rid of a vampire. So
Oh,
that part is true in terms of supernatural lore. As with
okay.
most things that are living
Mhm.
or unliving, you cut their head off, they're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
But that was a very common practice in ancient times too, and when they thought it was a vampire, or they were suspected someone when they died might become a vampire because they thought they might have been weird or a witch or something. Before they buried them, they would cut the head off and either put the head between like the legs, like like
Mm.
by the feet, or like under the butt, so that it couldn't do anything with it. So,
Yeah, that makes
if so
sense.
decapitation is a thing for killing vampires, so
Mhm. So now, while all the vampires are out, Dean and Sam go to the vampire's nest. Dean fills the vamp on lookout, and then Dean opens up the cage to free all the people stuck in there. Who knows what happens to them or where they go? That is not shown on camera. We can just
mhm,
assume they are outliving their best lives again,
they are saved.
their best traumatized lives, and nobody
Yeah,
will ever believe them ever.
they need a lot of therapy.
Yes. And everybody will think that they are nuts. And it was like, I don't
Well, they could also just think that there are people that are just into this stuff, like into bloodletting and shit.
true. True,
It
true.
depends on if they saw, like, what they saw,
Mhm.
and if they, because like, also, if you see that, you might rationalize it as something like that.
True. And now John runs into the vampires on the road. Luther asks where the other two are, and John says out filling their nests, which Luther doesn't seem like too happy about, but there is only one guy and they let everybody else go. So, it's whatever.
Mhm,
John is now negotiating, saying he'll give them Kate back if he gets the gun. Luther puts the gun down on the road, and John is, like, bending down to get it while holding Kate, and Kate throws him backwards, and now he's just, like, getting beat up by everybody.
mhm,
But, hey, Sam and Dean don't listen to their father's orders, and they come back and start hitting everyone with arrows. Dean picks up a machete and starts, like, hack and slashing everybody, and then Luther grabs
grab
Sam
Sam.
and says to put it down or he'll kill Sam.
Mhm,
Luther says he doesn't understand why they just can't be left alone because they have as much as right to live as everyone else. John says he doesn't think so and shoots him with the Colt. Luther dies actually a very slow death, and everybody else leaves.
mhm,
Apparently, in the supernatural universe, when the leader dies, not all of them die, like assuming he's the one that turned all of them.
yeah.
But I guess we don't know that. But hey, we know how the cult works now.
Yeah, and the death scene for Luther is actually really cool because, like, I like the effect a lot of what the Colt
Mhm.
does. As the bullet, like, goes in his forehead, he just, like, it turns black, and he just, like, starts, like, it's, like, a really cool scene. I can't even do
Mhm.
it justice by describing it, so I'd recommend
You
going and
see,
watching that
like
because that was really cool.
the it's not I wouldn't even say it's a soul. I guess maybe you see, like, the supernatural part leave his body. It's like a
Yeah.
white wisp. Well, it is like a soul, but I would say that it's not because the cult kills the supernatural thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Mhm.
Like, I just like how it looked. I was like, "Wow, that looks sweet."
Now back at the cabin, John walks in and says, "So, boys, you ignored a direct order." And Dean says, "But it saved your ass." And John says, "It's scary, but they are stronger as a family, so they need to all go after the demon together."
Thank God.
Yeah.
Like, this I was like, once that happened, I'm like, "Thank God, like, at least there's some growth to these characters." Which, like, this episode a lot of growth, which I will give it a lot of credit for later.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where I was just like, once this happened, I was like, "Thank God, at least someone finally got through to this psychopath." But I do think that Luther had a point. He doesn't
Mhm,
understand why they can't be left alone and has the right to live as much as everyone else. Because it's also, like, that weird thing of, like, who gets to choose who is the arbiter of who gets to live and die? Like, why do hunters get to choose that? If you're
mhm,
going around, like, murdering, like, a bunch of people, sure, yeah, that's a bad thing. It's not a good thing. But it's like, again, it's like just like humans using animals as food sources.
mhm,
It's the same thing. We are an apex predator and we use other animals as our food sources. They're an apex predator even above us. Why can't they use the lesser animals as food sources? If
mhm,
their one food source is people, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that weird line of, like, which I think is really interesting. Again, this show does a very good job of, like, humanizing pretty much every being in the show. Demons, angels, monsters, whatever. They do a pretty good job, I think, of making them kind of a little sympathetic and a little bit interesting where it's like, yeah, like, are these guys like, are Dean and Sam the good guys? Kind of, but kind of not. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a
mhm.
weird line there because they're not like monsters in the sense of like the Wendigo was a monster in the first episode, where it's just like an unthinking force of nature that's just like, raw, I'm going to kill everyone. Or like a
Yeah.
thinking force of nature, but it's more of like bestial, it's more monstrous, right?
Mhm.
Versus vampires, they're people that just have to drink blood now. Like,
Yeah,
it's a weird line.
it
And it's like,
is.
that's why it's an interesting thing because, to be fair, also, Luther was like the most sane of all the vampires, I felt like. So.
Yeah, it is. I feel
It's
like
just an interesting thing to ponder for sure, I think.
we would need to see, like, more narrative around vampires and from the vampire's point of view
And we
as
will later
well.
in the series because there's one episode that in particular that I'm thinking of that is it tackles this problem
Mm,
because there's like a nest of vampires that have decided to suck it up and drink cow blood, even though it's not nearly as good as human blood.
mhm.
But they
Yeah.
decide to like basically have a little farm and they farm their own blood, just like what people do. And that's the whole thing in that episode, which is like seasons from now, where
Oh.
like Dean is like, "Oh, they're vampires. They need to all die." And
Mhm.
then, like, Sam has to be like, "Well, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just living.
Yeah.
Why do they have to die?" Like, and that's that weird conflict. And I think that's really cool.
Mhm.
Because even all the demons, I feel like, aren't just like, "Oh, we're evil for being evil's sake." Like, a lot of them, like, have justifications or have, like, more of a gray area to them, which I find cool. Same with the
Mhm.
angels. The angels aren't just pure good. Some of them are fucking psycho, which it's cool. It makes more sense because that's also in reality how things are. Nothing is black and white, good and evil. Everything is gray. Everything is gray.
That's true.
Like, there's always shades of gray to everything in reality. So, like, that's why it's cool to see them actually tackle it in that way.
Mhm.
Instead of being like, "Oh, God's always good." It turns out, spoilers again for the end of the series, which we've said millions of times already on this podcast, with God being the overall big bad evil guy of this entire show, that's fascinating because
Mhm.
he's supposed to be good.
Yeah,
Like, that's cool.
it is. It Yeah, it's a good twist for sure, and a good ethics and moral reflection. So for
Alright, how many crimes did they commit?
one at least one that I walked, which was the breaking and entering into Daniel's home, so just 1 year.
Maybe an extra year for breaking and entering into a morgue and stealing blood?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even because it's not on camera, so I kinda forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would make sense.
and I'm sure, like, stealing blood from a morgue is a crime. Like, I'm sure it is.
Oh, well, yeah, especially if you had to get it from a corpse
Well, they
already.
drain the blood in a morgue and, like,
Yeah,
that's what they do.
that's true.
So, like, they probably have it in a jar, and he just goes like, "Oop."
For our, episode ratings, we rated it exactly the same,
Yeah, or
everything
we
all the
were
way
right on
down.
the money.
So for story and pacing, it has a 3.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a midline story.
It was normal. It was like it felt fairly it made sense.
Mhm.
I liked the direct I liked mostly, like I liked it, but it wasn't, like, perfect or anything, and it felt a little bit, like, a little long or a little, like, clunky to some points where I was just like, "Eh, I
Yeah.
get what the point is, but it just feels a little weird." But
Mhm.
overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, me too. For monster lore, we both gave it a 5. There was a lot of lore, as you can tell. This episode's already almost 2 hours long. There was
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot
this is
to
even a
get
long one.
through. So, yeah, they did good on the monster lore front here. Like, they did well explaining it and, like, making it compelling.
Yes, they made it very compelling, and again, the things that differed from, like, the lore, it didn't bother me as much because, again, like you said, vampire lore changes all the fucking time depending on what media we're doing, but I like that I really enjoyed that John addressed every single bit of, like, normal lore and was like, "That's all shit. This is how we're doing our vampires." And it's like, "Okay, cool. We now understand in this world how their vampires work." And they did a
Yes.
great job of like, "Oh, they live in nests, they mate for life, they dead man's blood." Like, everything they explained it all out. They laid it out really clearly, and it was really fun, and also, for fuck's sake, it finally wasn't a ghost.
Yes. Lol.
So, 5 out of 5, man, not ghost 5. Done.
Yes, exactly. For character development, both have a 5. All 3 of them had
Yeah.
some kind of development.
All of them had a ton of character growth. Yes, it was rehashing a lot of the same issues, but it's like they finally were able to break through some of those issues and move forward, which is why it's like, boom, great. I
Yes,
understand where we're going now. Like, we're getting the progression of their stories, which is great.
exactly. I agree.
It wasn't just a rehash. It was like a moving forward.
Mhm. For visual and direction, we both gave it a 4. There was a lot of cool effects and, like, the atmosphere for me, it was really cool.
Yeah, I think the death effect was very cool. I liked the voiceover shots. I thought were really fun.
Mhm.
Overall, I enjoyed like the attack scenes, the fight scenes, like all of it was really. I thought it was really well directed.
Emotional impact, we both gave it a 3. Like, yeah, it was normal, a normal amount of emotions.
Yeah, I didn't feel that strongly. The only reason why it's a 3 and not like a 2 or something, because like it didn't really feel much. I felt more pity for the vampires and like feel bad for the vampires than I did for like the hunters in this episode.
You had a lot of
But
emotion about John.
that was why it's a 3 instead of anything lower, is because I was just so infuriated with John as a character that I was just like, it has to be at least a 3 because, like, I just got so riled up by John as being awful at
Mhm.
his job and at being a dad.
Yes, exactly. Rewatchability, we both gave it a 2. I would not voluntarily rewatch this.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, the episode overall, like, the reason I got so excited was because of the vampire, I got to talk about a lot of lore, but as an episode, like, of this show, was it the most like, "Man, I gotta rewatch?" No. If it was on TV, like, I guess, but, like, not even that, I wouldn't really be that excited about it. I'd be like, this is a fine episode."
Yeah.
Like, I think the episode overall is not bad, but it's not, like, blows me away that I wanna watch it again.
Mhm. Yep, and then Salt and Sass, it's a 1. There was no banter, no there was no tropes, they took out all the tropes.
There was
Um,
no fun in this episode.
yeah,
This
no,
episode was serious as, like, all can be.
except for Dean's one line about necrophilia.
Yeah, like, Dean had a couple good lines, he always does. But he had, like, those 2 lines in that fight, and that's it, and it's like, there wasn't even it was funny, but it wasn't even, like, that great. So I was just like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, can't really give it money points for that one."
right. So that means our average score and our combined score is the same at 3.29 out of 5.
Let us know in the comments what you think, if we think our scores were correct or not, and let us know what you feel about the episode. Alrighty, well, that brings us to the end of Season 1, Episode 20, Dead Man's Blood. Thank you for joining us as we learned what Supernatural's universe's vampires do. And next week, we'll finally see the big bad of the season, and we get to talk about him. That'll be fun. So, thank you all so much for watching. See you in the arc. Goodbye.
Bye.